Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever caught a glimpse of yourself in the mirror? Not your face, not your body, but your spirit, and thought, that's not who I'm supposed to be? There's a weaker version of you that's been living rent-free in your mind, the one who makes excuses, the one who avoids conflict, avoids growth, avoids responsibility. That version of you, it's time to bury it, not with hate, but with purpose. Let's talk about how every morning before the world has a chance to place its demands on us, we stand at a crossroads. Two paths. One worn down and familiar, the path walked by the version of ourselves we've been clinging to out of habit, out of fear, out of comfort. The other path is uncomfortable, uncertain, and painfully honest. It's the one that doesn't ask us who we are, but who we are willing to become. And this decision, though it happens quietly, is not small, because when you choose to stop negotiating with the version of yourself that you've outgrown, you're not just changing a habit, you're declaring war on every excuse you've ever believed. We like to think change is a matter of strategy, that if we just plan better, organize better, think better, we'll finally move forward. But the truth is, most people don't fail because of poor planning. They fail because they keep the back door open. They leave a seat at the table for their weaker self. They say, I'll wake up at 5 tomorrow, but when 5 o'clock comes, they allow debate. They say, I'm done with this toxic relationship, and then answer the phone when it rings. They say, I'm committed to a new way of living, but negotiate the terms of that commitment every time it gets hard. And when you negotiate with your weakness, weakness always wins. There's a man whose story you may have heard, David Goggins. In 2003, he wasn't a Navy SEAL. He wasn't an ultra-endurance athlete. He was overweight. He sprayed for cockroaches during the day and came home exhausted to a life that felt small and suffocating. And then one night he looked in the mirror and saw what he really was. A man who had been negotiating with weakness every day of his life. That moment wasn't filled with dramatic music or some Hollywood turning point. It was just honest, brutally honest. And in that honesty, he didn't make another plan. He didn't write another goal. He made a decision. He decided to stop living as the version of himself he could no longer respect. The next morning he ran. His legs weren't ready. His lungs weren't ready, but his mind was. And that's what matters. He ran until his legs bled, literally. And that pain became the beginning of a new life. Years later, he would become one of the most mentally tough individuals on the planet, not because of talent, but because he stopped giving his weaker self a vote. He stopped taking meetings with the version of himself that was fine with mediocrity. You don't have to become a Navy SEAL. That's not the point. The point is that everyone has a mirror moment, a moment where you have to look yourself in the eyes and ask, is this who I want to be 5 years from now? And if the answer is no, then why are you still negotiating with that version? Why are you still giving it time, energy, and space in your life? The old version of you is crafty. It speaks with a voice that sounds like reason. You've worked hard, take a break. You'll start next week. You deserve a little comfort today. But comfort isn't kind. Comfort is a liar dressed as self-care. Because true care isn't about making yourself feel better now. It's about building a version of you that can walk with pride in the future. And pride isn't born from ease. It's born from battle. This isn't about hating who you were, it's about outgrowing who you were. Think of it like a snake shedding its skin. There's no hatred for the old skin, it served its purpose. But try living in it once it's too tight, and it'll suffocate you. Growth demands release. You cannot evolve and cling at the same time. And here's the part most people miss. There is no such thing as neutral. You are either being pulled forward by the person you're becoming, or dragged backward by the person you refuse to let go of. Every day you allow the old you to stay in the room, they will speak, they will vote, they will lead, and they will lead you nowhere. If you're tired of starting over, stop negotiating. Decisions, not deals. Commitments, not considerations. You don't get what you wish for, you get what you're willing to suffer for. Change isn't about finding the easy way. It's about finally choosing the honest way. The way where you stop lying to yourself about what you're capable of. The way where you finally admit that your potential is suffocating under the weight of your excuses. And let's be clear, this isn't about being perfect. You will fail. You will have days where the old voice sneaks in. But the difference is you don't entertain it anymore. You don't sit with it. You don't let it stay. You say, I hear you, but you don't run this anymore. And then you get up and you move forward, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Look around at your life right now, your relationships, your health, your finances, your habits. They are all a reflection of the standards you've tolerated from your old self. And if you don't like what you see, it's not about fixing the world. It's about refusing to accept the version of you that created it. That's where freedom begins. That's where real change starts, not with a strategy, but with a refusal, a line in the sand, a moment where you say, no more. And when you do that, when you truly decide, the universe responds. Doors open, strength rises, energy returns, not because the world got easier, but because you got stronger, because you stopped bargaining and started becoming. So here's the choice. Continue negotiating with your limitations or walk away from the table. Because the minute you stop making deals with your old self, your new life begins. Discipline is often misunderstood. It's not rigid. It's not robotic. It's not a punishment or a chain that limits freedom. In fact, it's the opposite. Discipline is one of the purest expressions of self-respect. It says, I value myself enough to follow through. It's not about impressing others or chasing perfection. It's about showing up for yourself again and again and again, even when the feelings have long faded and the mood has changed. Too often we rely on motivation to move us. We wait for that perfect alignment of inspiration and mood to begin something meaningful. But motivation is temporary, it's fragile, it's reactive. It depends on circumstances. It rises and falls like a wave, and when it crashes, we're left wondering why we stopped, why we gave up, why we never finished. Transformation doesn't come from a few good days of energy. It comes from the dull, consistent rhythm of discipline, those quiet choices we make every day when no one's watching, when the applause has stopped, and when there's no external reward in sight. A young man once approached me after a talk and said, I can't seem to stay consistent with anything. He was bright, capable, full of potential, but he looked defeated. I asked him a simple question, what time do you wake up every day? He hesitated and said, it depends. That was all I needed to hear. His life wasn't being led by commitment. It was being dragged around by emotion. There was no anchor, no principle, no steady beat behind his actions. He was chasing the feeling, not honoring the commitment. Discipline isn't about waking up at a certain hour because someone on the internet said so. It's about aligning your life with your values. It's about doing what you said you would do long after the feeling that made you say it has passed. That's the hard part. That's the part most people skip. Because it's not sexy, it doesn't come with fireworks or instant results, but it works every time. Because discipline isn't about what you do, it's about who you are becoming. When you practice discipline, you send a message to yourself, I can trust me. And that kind of trust is rare. We think trust is something we only build with others through honesty, consistency, reliability. But what about the promises we make to ourselves? How often do we break them? How often do we say, I'll start tomorrow, and then don't? Every time we do that, we erode our internal trust. We begin to believe that our own word doesn't mean much. And that belief slowly chips away at our confidence, our self-worth, our ability to believe in any future we dream of. But when you do follow through, when you show up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, you build that trust brick by brick. You become someone who doesn't need to be pushed or coaxed or convinced. You become someone whose actions are aligned with their intentions. And that is a force to be reckoned with, because now your life is not being governed by moods, but by mission. I once read about a Navy SEAL who said that the most dangerous man isn't the one who's loud, flashy, or physically imposing. It's the one who's consistent, quiet, disciplined. You don't see him coming, but he doesn't stop moving forward. He just keeps doing what needs to be done every day. That's what makes him unstoppable. And the same applies to anyone trying to build something meaningful. A business, a body, a relationship, a life. The ones who win aren't the ones who get hyped up for a week. They're the ones who keep showing up after the hype wears off. People will tell you to dream big, and you should. But don't forget that dreams without discipline are just wishes. And wishes don't build legacies. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. It's the daily grind, the small repeated actions, the uncomfortable choices that don't pay off immediately, but change everything in the long run. I know people who set goals every January and forget them by February. Why? Because the goal wasn't backed by systems. The excitement wasn't backed by discipline. It's not that they weren't capable. It's not that they weren't deserving. They just didn't have a plan that could survive the days they didn't feel like showing up. Discipline is what picks you up on those days. Discipline is what whispers, let's go, when your mind screams, I can't. It's not loud or dramatic. It's steady. It's loyal. It's that quiet decision to keep going when nobody else is watching, when you're not being praised, when there's no social media post to prove it happened. That's when it matters most. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to win every day. You just need to become someone who honors their word, especially to themselves. Because the way you treat your own promises becomes the way you see yourself. And the way you see yourself becomes the way you show up in the world. Think of it this way. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you're voting for the person you want to become. Not the person you are today, but the version of you that you respect, admire, and aspire to be. It's not about being the best. It's about being better. A little more reliable, a little more courageous, a little more consistent. And eventually, when you stack those votes, day after day, something shifts. Not overnight, not dramatically, but deeply. You become the kind of person who doesn't need motivation to act. You become the kind of person who acts out of integrity. And that kind of person can do anything. Discipline is self-respect in motion. It says, I am worth the effort. I am worth the struggle. I am worth the follow-through. You won't always feel like it, but feelings are fleeting. Values aren't. So lead with values, move with intention, and let your discipline be the quiet proof of your self-respect. Because when your life is built on discipline, you no longer wait for the moment, you create it. Comfort is a cage, and the longer you stay inside it, the more you begin to believe that the cage is all there is. It's quiet, predictable, familiar, and that familiarity seduces you. It whispers lies that sound like love. You've done enough. Don't risk it. Play it safe. You deserve to rest. And while rest is essential, the kind of rest that comfort offers isn't renewal, it's resignation. There's a version of you that you've never met, stronger, bolder, hungrier. That version isn't found curled up in the warmth of routine or nestled in the softness of excuses. That version of you is hiding just on the other side of resistance. And resistance lives in discomfort, in fear, in uncertainty. It shows up when your heart pounds in your chest before you speak up in a room. It visits when you consider leaving a job that drains you or starting something new that might fail. And it especially knocks on your door when you decide to become someone you've never been before. The weak version of you, the one comfort feeds, isn't evil, it's scared. It wants to protect you, but in doing so, it traps you. It holds you hostage with nice-sounding chains like next year or when I'm ready or someday. And that's the tragedy. Most people don't realize they're imprisoned until it's too late to escape. They confuse ease for peace. They confuse avoiding risk with finding wisdom. They don't see that their avoidance of pain is the very reason they remain stuck. Imagine a butterfly in the moment of becoming, not yet fully free, but no longer what it once was. The struggle it experiences pushing through the cocoon isn't an obstacle to transformation, it is the transformation. Without that struggle, the wings will never strengthen. Without that resistance, flight becomes impossible. That which once sheltered it would eventually suffocate it. And that's the brutal truth. What protected you yesterday might be what's preventing you today. What gave you stability before may now be the very thing choking your potential. Growth is allergic to comfort. The soil of transformation is discomfort, uncertainty, vulnerability. That's where strength is built. That's where courage is born. You don't become resilient by staying warm and safe. You become resilient by walking into the fire and realizing you didn't burn, you forged, you sharpened, you leveled up. And that only happens when you choose to step out. Comfort is not just a lack of danger, it's the absence of demand. It asks nothing of you. It requires no courage, no focus, no hunger, but the life you dream of, the impact you want to make, that demands everything. It demands you look fear in the eye and move anyway. It demands you say no to what's easy and yes to what's uncertain, because that's where the real you is waiting. Think of the moments in your life when you grew the most. Were they comfortable or were they terrifying? Did you feel safe Or did you feel like everything was about to fall apart? That's not coincidence. That's design. We grow not in spite of difficulty, but because of it. Struggle is the cost of evolution, and every time you choose comfort over challenge, you pay for it with progress. There is no breakthrough without breakdown. There is no becoming without unbecoming, and that process hurts. It's supposed to. Pain isn't punishment, it's proof. It means you're reaching past what you thought you could handle. It means you're stretching the limits of who you were yesterday. And the moment you feel like quitting, that moment is sacred. That's the doorway. That's the threshold between who you were and who you're becoming. Most people turn back, but the ones who press through, they find a new strength on the other side, a new confidence, a new standard for themselves. You will never build resilience from within a padded room of comfort. Resilience is earned in the trenches. It's earned in the moments when your legs shake and your voice trembles and your thoughts scream, "This is too much," and you go forward anyway. That's where the stronger version of you is born. And it's not just about personal victory. It's about what that version of you can do, who that version can serve, because when you grow, you don't just grow for you, you grow for the people you're meant to inspire, the people who will one day say, because they didn't give up, I won't either. That is legacy, that is impact. And comfort never created legacy. When we avoid discomfort, we shrink. Our dreams get smaller, our voice gets quieter, our impact fades. But when we embrace it, when we decide that growth matters more than ease, that purpose matters more than popularity, that courage matters more than comfort, everything changes. You are not here to play small. You are not here to live life on repeat, hitting snooze on your potential. You are here to build, to stretch, to transform. But none of that happens inside your comfort zone. The door to your next chapter is marked with fear, doubt, and pain. And the key is your willingness to walk through anyway. Stop waiting for comfort to give you permission. Stop negotiating with the weak voice that tells you to sit back down. Kill the version of you that settles for safe. Bury the part of you that hides behind the excuse of "I'm not ready." You are ready the moment you decide to be. Not when the fear is gone, not when the plan is perfect, but when you decide that who you're becoming is worth the cost of the discomfort it takes to get there. Comfort will try to convince you that playing small is wisdom, but you are not built for small. You are built to lead, to impact, to evolve, and that means discomfort must become your companion, not your enemy. Learn to see it not as pain, but as the stretching of your wings. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Because everything you want is on the other side of that cage. All you have to do is stop clinging to the bars. Let go, step out, and never look back. We've been told to act our way into confidence. Fake it till you make it, they say. But what if that's the long road? What if the real shortcut isn't pretending, but becoming? You see, identity isn't something that forms after we achieve. Identity is the soil in which achievement grows. Behavior doesn't create identity. Identity creates behavior. That's the real truth. You don't become a writer by finishing a manuscript. You write that manuscript because deep down, you've already decided, I am a writer. You don't become brave by facing fear. You face fear because you believe you're courageous. This isn't semantics. It's the engine behind lasting change. The problem is, most of us are playing a broken loop. We wake up, look in the mirror, and see a version of ourselves we're trying to escape. We put effort into changing habits, eat better, work harder, scroll less, move more, but the results always feel temporary. Why? Because we're still seeing ourselves as the person who struggles. We identify as someone trying, not someone who already is. And as long as that's true, all progress will feel like pushing a boulder uphill. Think about Muhammad Ali. Before the world gave him permission to be great, he gave it to himself. I am the greatest, he declared. Not I hope to be, not one day maybe. He decided, and the world had no choice but to catch up. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. That's what happens when the story you tell yourself internally begins to match the actions you take externally. We tend to think change starts with action. And yes, action is important, but action without identity is a treadmill. You move, but you don't go anywhere. It's why diets fail. It's why motivation fizzles out. It's why you keep making goals and then ghosting them a month later. Because if the person underneath the goal doesn't shift, the habits can't hold. You're still wearing an old name tag while trying to operate in a new role. We've all seen this in our own lives. Maybe you started waking up early. For a few days, maybe even a few weeks, it felt amazing. You were energized, focused, intentional. But then one morning, the bed was warm, your energy was low, and that old voice whispered, "See, you're not really a morning person." And just like that, the old identity won. Not because your willpower failed, but because your self-concept never changed. You were behaving like someone new, but believing like someone old. Who you are, so how do we change the story? It starts with a bold decision to believe differently before you behave differently. That means instead of saying, "I'm trying to be more disciplined," you say, "I am a disciplined person." Instead of "I want to be confident," it becomes "I am confident." And the mind, that powerful engine between your ears, will start looking for ways to prove you right. Because your brain hates cognitive dissonance. When your identity and actions don't match, one of them has to give. And if your identity is strong enough, your actions will rise to meet it. And so this is the psychological principle behind belief-driven change. Athletes use it, performers use it, leaders use it, not because they have some special superpower, but because they understand the real shift isn't physical, it's internal, it's emotional, it's belief. Ask yourself this: who do I believe I am right now? Because the answer to that question is running your entire life. If you see yourself as someone who always messes things up at the last minute, guess what? You will. If you believe you're bad with money, you'll find ways to stay broke, no matter how much you make. If you secretly think you're undeserving of love, you'll sabotage connection even when it's right in front of you. And here's the kicker: your life will never outgrow your self-concept. Ever. That's not punishment. That's design. Your actions, your discipline, your courage, they all spring from who you think you are. So if you want different results, you don't just need new habits, you need a new identity. You need to become someone who already sees themselves on the other side. This isn't delusion, it's declaration. And there's a difference. Delusion ignores reality. Declaration reshapes it. It says, "This is who I am, and my actions will align accordingly." It doesn't wait for evidence, it creates the evidence. Because it understands that transformation is top down, not bottom up. Think of the strongest version of yourself. Visualize them. How do they speak? How do they walk into a room? How do they handle pressure, setbacks, temptations? What do they do when no one's watching? That version of you isn't some fantasy. It's a mirror. It's you without the weight of insecurity, you without the baggage of past mistakes, you minus the excuses. It's the real you. And every day you have the power to choose which version of yourself walks out the door. We keep looking for hacks, tricks, blueprints, but maybe it's not that complicated. Maybe it's as simple as this. Start acting like the person you already are deep down. Let your behavior flow from identity, not guilt. Don't take action because you feel broken. Take action because you believe you were made for more. Don't go to the gym to punish yourself. Go because you're someone who values health. Don't build the business because you're afraid of failure. Build it because you're a creator, a builder, a visionary. The weak version of you lives in limbo. It's waiting for permission, waiting to feel ready. But readiness is a trap. No one wakes up one day with a perfect sense of certainty. The people who seem the most sure, they're not always more prepared. They've just stopped asking for permission to believe in themselves. So kill the weak version, not with hate, but with truth. The truth that you are already equipped, that you don't need to earn your identity. You need to embody it. You are not someone who's trying anymore. You are someone who already is. And your actions are just catching up to the truth you've finally decided to accept. We often speak of growth as if it's something that can be done in isolation, like success is built in the quiet moments alone with your goals. And while solitude has power, there's an invisible force that shapes you more than you realize, the people you choose to surround yourself with. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the standard of your circle. And if that circle quietly accepts average, then excellence becomes rebellion. If your inner world is a spark, your environment is either the wind that fans it into flame or the water that puts it out. Take a hard look around you. not a soft glance, not a hopeful wish that those around you want the best for you. A ruthless, honest inventory. Who are your 5 closest people? Who do you spend time with when you're not performing, when you're just being? Because those people don't just influence you, they shape your beliefs about what's normal. If they sleep in, you'll feel justified doing the same. If they gossip, complain, or make excuses, it won't be long before those patterns feel acceptable to you too. The tragedy is not that we have low standards, it's that we inherit them without even knowing it. We think we're making independent choices, but our habits are often nothing more than the echo of our environment. You might say you want discipline, but if your circle celebrates shortcuts, you'll find yourself bargaining with your own values. You'll tell yourself stories that justify staying the same. It's not that bad. At least I'm not like them. I deserve to rest. And while all those things might feel true, they're often just polished versions of resignation. Sometimes, the people who love you most are the ones most invested in keeping you small. Not because they're malicious, not because they don't care, but because your growth threatens their comfort. You becoming more means they have to confront the parts of themselves they've chosen to ignore. So they pull you back with disguised affection. Don't overdo it. You've changed. You used to be so chill. And before you know it, you're shrinking to fit a mold you've already outgrown, wearing a mask to keep the peace. But peace is not the same as alignment. You were not put here to maintain other people's comfort. You were put here to rise, to stretch, to become. And that requires disruption. It means being okay with being misunderstood. It means walking alone for a season. It means choosing silence over shallow conversations. It means being willing to lose the approval of the crowd to find the respect of your future self. You're not being arrogant by distancing yourself. You're being responsible. You're not betraying your past by evolving. You're honoring your potential. Growth often looks like betrayal to those who are committed to staying the same. But you owe no one the version of you that keeps you stuck. Loyalty has its place, but not when it costs you your future. You can love people without giving them a front row seat to your becoming. You can wish them well and still walk away. If your circle doesn't challenge you, it's not a support system, it's a comfort blanket. And comfort is the enemy of transformation. Growth demands friction. It needs mirrors that reflect your blind spots, voices that call out your compromises, friends who say you're better than this even when you hate hearing it. Those are the people who make you better, not the ones who nod and smile while you drift further from your calling. And let's be honest, this is hard because we're wired for belonging. We crave connection. Cutting ties or creating distance feels unnatural. But there's a difference between connection and conformity. True connection pushes you toward your potential. Conformity just pulls you into compliance. One fuels purpose, the other feeds stagnation. You don't need critics to derail you. Casual company is enough. The friend who never holds you accountable, the colleague who subtly mocks your ambition, the relative who dismisses your dreams as unrealistic. These people don't come with flashing warning signs. They blend in, they seem harmless, but they dull your edge one conversation at a time. You have to protect your future with the same intensity that others protect their comfort. You have to choose proximity with people who are building, not just talking, who are healing, not just hurting, who are dreaming, not just drifting. Because the right circle won't just support your vision, they'll stretch it. They won't just cheer for your wins, they'll challenge your process. They won't just tolerate your truth, they'll demand it. That kind of circle is rare, but it's worth searching for, and it starts with becoming that kind of person yourself. You can't expect iron to sharpen iron if you're still hiding your edge. So show up, speak truth, refuse to settle. Become the standard you wish others would live by. And as you do, you'll notice something powerful. The wrong people will fall away naturally, and the right ones will find you. This is not about perfection, it's about intention. It's not about cutting everyone off and building walls. It's about clarity, knowing who adds value and who drains it, who sees your growth as a threat and who sees it as an invitation. Your circle is your ecosystem, and the ecosystems either grow life or decay it. If you want to change your life, start with the soil you're rooted in. The future version of you, the one you say you want to become, doesn't just need better habits. It needs a better environment. So audit your circle ruthlessly, because you're not just choosing friends, you're choosing your future. Pleasure is fast, it's the sugar rush, the scrolling dopamine, the binge watch escape hatch. It promises everything and delivers nothing that lasts. It keeps us busy chasing the next hit, convincing us that happiness lives in the next like, the next purchase, the next validation. But the truth is, pleasure is the decoy. It's loud and urgent, but it's not deep. It feels like living, but it's only distraction in disguise. And yet we keep going back. Because it's easy, because it's convenient, because it doesn't ask anything of us. It just offers a quick high and walks away before the crash. Purpose is different. Purpose doesn't beg for attention. It whispers. It doesn't seduce with promises. It calls with responsibility. Purpose doesn't spike your dopamine. It anchors your soul. It doesn't guarantee happiness, but it gives you something better, meaning. It's not the path of least resistance. It's the road marked with sacrifice, effort, and patience. But it's the only path that leads somewhere that matters. There's a reason so many of us feel stuck even while we're surrounded by comfort. There's a reason we're exhausted after weekends full of entertainment. There's a reason we scroll for hours and still feel empty. It's because we're feeding our cravings but starving our calling. We've been taught that fulfillment comes from feeling good, but the truth is, fulfillment comes from doing good, for something bigger than ourselves. Pleasure numbs pain, purpose transforms it. The pain you carry, the setbacks, the heartbreaks, the scars, they were never meant to be hidden, they were meant to be used. Pain becomes powerful when it's pointed at something greater than itself. When we attach our pain to a purpose, we stop running from it and start running with it. And suddenly what was once heavy becomes fuel. Look around, some of the most driven people you'll ever meet, the ones who show up when it's hard, the ones who build, create, lead, and lift others, they aren't fueled by comfort. They're fueled by a cause. They've suffered, they've failed, they've fallen. But instead of letting that pain define them, they let it direct them. Their wounds became windows through which purpose entered. Purpose gives suffering a destination. When Viktor Frankl wrote about his time in a Nazi concentration camp, he didn't describe comfort, there was none. He didn't speak about pleasure, there was no room for it. What he described was meaning, a reason to keep breathing when death was everywhere, a why that could survive anyhow. It wasn't willpower that kept them alive, it was purpose. And when you find yours, you stop asking what's the easiest way and start asking what's the most meaningful way. That shift, when it happens, is subtle, but everything changes. Suddenly waking up early isn't just a discipline, it's devotion. Working hard isn't about grinding, it's about giving. Failing isn't about shame, it's about shaping. Every obstacle becomes part of the story you're meant to tell. And instead of avoiding struggle, you start welcoming it. Because you know that purpose is forged in fire. Think about it, the most meaningful relationships in your life, they weren't built on comfort, they were tested. They went through storms, but that's what made them strong. The most meaningful accomplishments, you didn't feel pleasure the entire time. You felt pressure, doubt, fatigue, but you pushed through. And the pride you felt at the end, that wasn't pleasure. That was the purpose fulfilled. That was the soul saying, this matters. And still, we live in a culture that tells us to seek comfort like it's the goal. But comfort is not the goal. Comfort is the reward. It's the exhale after the sacrifice, not the substitute for it. You're not here to coast, you're here to contribute. You're not here to be entertained, you're here to build. Your life was never meant to be a series of shallow highs. It was meant to be a deep well of meaning. And that well is dug through effort, through honesty, through pain, and persistence. You don't become fulfilled by consuming more, you become fulfilled by becoming more. And you become more by aligning your actions with something that matters, something real, something worth waking up for when everything in you wants to stay in bed, something that doesn't care how you feel in the moment, only who you're becoming through the moments. That's what purpose does. It breaks you open and fills you with vision. It calls you to something that outlives you. And when you answer that call, you start seeing the world differently. You stop asking, what can I get? And start asking, what can I give? You stop chasing happiness and start creating legacy. And the beauty of it all, purpose isn't some mystical revelation. It doesn't come wrapped in thunder or lightning. It comes quietly when you choose to show up for what matters, even when it's hard. It comes when you say yes to integrity, yes to courage, yes to becoming who you were born to be. And every time you choose that path over the easier one, you leave behind a part of the old you. You die to the shallow and rise into the significant. Pleasure fades, purpose endures. One leaves you empty, the other leaves you full. One is a craving, the other is a calling. The choice is yours. Every day, every moment, you get to decide, do I want to feel good now, or do I want to become someone I'm proud of later? Do I want to numb the pain, or do I want to use it? Do I want to chase the hit, or do I want to build the legacy? Because the truth is, you are made for more than comfort. You are made to carry meaning. And the moment you step into that truth, you'll find that purpose has been waiting for you all along. There's a version of you that once made decisions out of fear, not clarity, who settled, avoided, doubted. That version wasn't broken. They were surviving. They were navigating a world without the wisdom you hold today. And before you can evolve into the next version of yourself, you have to pause and acknowledge them, not with shame, but with understanding. But forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the doorway to transformation, and it starts with self-compassion. Too many people try to grow by force, by rage, by hating who they once were. But growth isn't built on a foundation of war with yourself. It's built on peace with your past. That doesn't mean accepting mediocrity. It means recognizing that the old you got you here. They ran the first laps of the race. They fell, they got up, they tried. They weren't perfect, but they were necessary. Think back to the moments you wish you could erase. The jobs you stayed in too long, the people you shouldn't have trusted, the risks you were too afraid to take. You weren't stupid, you were scared. You weren't lazy, you were lost. And that's okay. Growth starts when we stop judging the past like a courtroom and start honoring it like a classroom. You're not here to drag your past like a chain. You're here to rise from it like a launch pad. Like an old operating system that once served its purpose, the old you was functional until it wasn't. Now it's time to update, to install new beliefs, write new code, create a life that reflects who you are becoming, not who you were. This is not about pretending your past didn't happen. It's about refusing to be defined by it. When you forgive the old you, you make room for the new you. And the new you isn't built in a moment, it's built in 1,000 choices. Waking up earlier, saying no to the things that drain you, saying yes to the things that scare you, speaking up, standing tall, showing up. There's a quiet power in deciding that your story doesn't end with who you used to be. That your next chapter isn't written by regret, it's written by responsibility. The responsibility to evolve. The courage to become someone your past self would barely recognize and deeply admire. Growth isn't loud, it doesn't always come with applause, but it always begins with a whisper. I forgive you, I'm ready now. And in that moment, everything changes. Because when you stop trying to erase the old you and start choosing to outgrow them, you stop fighting your history and start writing your legacy. Every day, you're faced with a decision, the weak you or the worthy you, one must die for the other to live. So stop waiting. Kill the version of yourself that's holding you back. Kill the victim. Kill the excuse maker. Kill the one who settles. And in its place, build someone unstoppable.